Welcome, everyone, to the next iteration of the IITE seminar. So today it is my great pleasure to welcome Violeta Calleja-Solanas from Doñana Biological Station in Spain. And she's going to be talking about a topic that I personally happen to like a lot, and I think many theoretical people do, namely the role of temporal variability in species interaction. So without further ado, please, Violeta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Giorgio, for the introduction, and Chris for inviting me to this seminar series. So, yeah, we are going to talk about time-varying ecological interactions. And then I will present a case study with actually empirical data to see how actually all this temporality is unfolding, and then some thoughts about how can we go beyond a simple characterization on time-varying networks and see whether we can get a mechanistic understanding on what's going on. So let's start. So first of all, just to set a common ground of understanding by ecological interactions, I mean the interactions that are encoded in a Lotka-Volterra model or any kind of Lotka-Volterra type model. So basically, our culprits are these AIG, that is a matrix. And in the particular case of the Lotka-Volterra model, basically it encodes the direct effect of species J abundance, the NJ, on species I per capita growth rate. And if we want to be mathematically precise, with all other species held constant. And I mean, I really love this model. It has been super useful for theoretical and quantitative ecologists. But one of the limitations that we can say it has is that the parameters of the species, the intrinsic growth rate R and the matrix of interactions A, are considered fixed through time. So we are used to see this network that is a time aggregated network for one community. And the question is, actually, why would networks vary? Do they do it? Actually, the answer is yes. They can do it because of phenology, migration of extinction, so nodes may disappear altogether, or environmental variability. And when I'm presenting this work, I really like to show this picture. This is Doñana, early this year. This is a stork with her nest, and it's not surrounded by sand, but all this is water. So it rained a lot. But exactly the same spot that is our sampling site can also look like this. This is from last year, because this year we couldn't sample. So, I mean, if you compare these two pictures, it's clear that the interactions that are going to unfold between the plants or the insects, the stork herself, are going to be pretty different in these situations. A more quantitative example, we can see it here with phenology, that basically phenology studies the timing of, for example, plants and their pollinators. And if we see plant 1 and 2, they share a common pollinator. So we might think that they are kind of competing for the attention of the pollinator. But the thing is that the plant species 1 flowers on season 1, and species 2 blooms in season 2. So actually there is no overlap between the plants, so the pollinator will happily feed on species 1 and then on species 2. And zooming in, that we're able to get this understanding of what's exactly going on in our communities. And how could this interaction network vary through time? Well, it can happen almost everything. And during the last 10 years, there have been reports of changes in nodes, so node turnover, and then changes in the direction, weight, and signs of interactions. For example, this example on the right, they were able to obtain somehow like instantaneous interaction strengths, and they saw that during summer, the interactions were weaker and they were related with more diversity. So again, weak interactions, high diversity, it back up to some previous results. And you may think, okay, so if temporality in interactions are so important, why we have not heard about it before? Or why is not everybody using temporal interactions? Well, because actually there are a lot of challenges to overcome to study them correctly. The first of all is that we need long-term data to infer those networks. And in ecology, beside bacteria, I have learned during my postdoc here at Doñana that that's pretty hard. And then even though you have the data, you then need to have a reliable network inference procedure and then theoretical tools to characterize in a generalizable form this temporal variability. And so let's see if we can overcome these challenges with our case study. And we are here in Doñana, and during the past 10 years, my colleagues here have been sampling several sites several times per year, and they have came up with this beautiful data set of wild bees and another beautiful data set of annual plants. And please remember, we are not studying pollination interactions. These are two independent, different data sets, okay? So we are talking about intra-guild interactions, so just to remember that. But what they do share in common is environmental factor. In that case, it's rainfall, and what is going to be our working hypothesis is that the temporal variability in rainfall is going to affect the intrusion growth rates and interactions of our species. And in order to do that, what we want is to develop further a typical classical framework. Here we have, it's not the locable terra, it's the Rickert model, but the philosophy is the same. In a non-time variable world, we will have this equation, a long data set, and we will condense all this information in one single matrix, the matrix of interactions and a vector of R's. But the thing is that if we want to add temporal variation, the more straightforward way to do it has been to add just linear dependence, both in intrinsic growth rates and interactions. So in that case, because I really want to focus on interactions, now what we are going to have is one matrix of like baseline interactions A plus a matrix of effects of rainfall. So then you sum all these matrices, and you are going to have for each value of rainfall or environmental driver, one matrix. So instead of one aggregated interaction matrix, we are going to have one matrix for each variable of our rainfall variable, in this case, theta of t. And then since we have several networks, we can characterize them and see how diversity and coexistence are going to unfold. Have we overcome the challenges? Well, regarding the data, it's pretty rich. It has almost 30,000 data points, and the species are annual. So we are covering 10 generations, almost 10 generations of individuals. The way in which we inferred the networks were with generalized linear mixed effect modeling. It's not perfect. We are working on Bayesian and other algorithms, but it does the job. And then now I'm going to present you the metrics that we think that are ecologically meaningful to characterize temporal variation, and a framework that we think might be useful to predict long-term dynamics, that is the structural stability, if I have time. So the result. First of all, we measured one metric called temporality that actually was created for social time varying interactions, but but we can also measure it. And why? Well, that temporality answered the question of, but do our networks change time to time? Because maybe this B matrix, its elements, maybe they are all almost zero. So at the end of the day, the effect of rainfall would be negligible. So let's measure it. And we find that it's not. There are some effects. So if here in the x-axis, I have plotted the rainfall change from year to year, and the temporality measures how similar are the networks. So if it's very high, it seems that the networks are very different. So even though this result is pretty obvious, it's very important to check it out at the beginning. So the more rainfall, the more difference the networks are good. Now, regarding ecological information we can obtain, these are the networks for the BEES dataset. So we have first measured the intra-specific interactions because they are related with self-limitation. And we have found that we call it intraspecific dominance. So basically how the percentage of species that had higher self-limiting effects that diminished with rainfall anomaly. Rainfall anomaly basically was how the rainfall deviated from a medium and historical average rainfall. So our interpretation of this result is that very negative rainfall anomalies, so like drought, lessen the possible stabilizing effect that self-regulation may have because the strength of these diagonal terms diminishes. And then regarding the interspecific terms, we found a pretty cool thing. This is with the BEES dataset. If we again plot them against the rainfall anomaly, that actually is the time, and we plot first, okay, just the positive interactions, we see that with drought, the interactions that with drought in positive interactions increase in average strength, and the opposite is found in the competition. And even though it might be strange that in harsh years you obtain more facilitation, actually this is coherent with the space gradient hypothesis because it posits exactly that. But the thing is that it was introduced for plants, and now we have found it not only in plants but also in pollinators. With it's the first and it's pretty cool. Just very briefly, we also have time variation in the intrinsic growth rate, plus some little noise. And what we found, if we plot in the y-axis these intrinsic growth rates, that there are a lot of spatial contingencies, a lot of noise, because not all sampling sites are equally suited and react equally to the effect of rainfall. So basically, if you combine the effect of rainfall plus this stochasticity, you obtain like species that are winner and species that are loser of this environmental variability. And so far, we have just characterized the interactions and the intrinsic growth rates. And we have found that they do vary in strength and sign. And this rearrangement, this variation pattern is coherent with some theoretical predictions, because since we have a model, we can have some more mechanistic understanding of what's going on. And then if you also look at the intrinsic growth rates, you also see that there are different variations in them. Okay, and now beyond this characterization, since we have a model, we actually can simulate other different scenarios. And what I mean by that, I mean is that we have condensed all the information about the effects of rainfall on our parameters, but I can simulate some in silico, some imagined theta series of rainfall that I have just invented to see how the community is going to react. And in this case, we measured the reaction of the community with just a constant mean rainfall, and then with continuous increase on rainfall, continuous decrease, and then this other was changing between high rainfall and then low rainfall through the years. Okay, and what we obtained the results were different from each data set, what was like expected since they are pretty different. And the cool thing, well, the y-axis is the Shannon index. So basically, if it's high, that means that we have a lot of diversity, and that diversity have homogeneous an homogeneous distribution in abundance. You do not have just one bully and then almost zero species. And at the end of our simulations, we find that non-zero Shannon entropy, Shannon index, sorry, was achieved in simulations with constant rainfall, this flipping rainfall, and for the bees, it only worked a continuous increase in rainfall, which is pretty interesting, and it can answer other questions about prediction of our communities. Of course, we cannot go beyond certain values of rainfall because this is a linear model. Of course, we know that the functional response is going to be like a sigmoid or something like that. But if we interpolate, I think that we can play a little bit with it. And then what I think is very interesting is to study these changes in both R and the matrix of interaction through an structural stability approach. Because why? Because it's able to combine these two key parameters of a species. So basically, for the ones that don't know this theoretical framework, but it's a shift in perspective. So instead of asking whether one equilibrium, one coexistent point is possible under one exact set of R's and interactions, we ask how big, how large is the range of conditions where coexistent works, and how much change in these parameters can the system tolerate before breaking apart, so before some species going to extinct. So instead of one point, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but instead of just studying one point, thank you, we study the size and the shape of the regions of all the points that have produce coexistence. And by coexistence, basically, I mean the region of parameters where all species have positive abundance. And that's called, in this structural stability jargon, the feasibility domain. So you, in this space of conditions, you might have one point in which some species go extinct because they have, I don't know, very small R's, and other points in which species persist. So we want this to study this region of positive abundances points. And the cool thing is that the properties of this region are encoded in the interaction matrix, and what determines whether my community is inside this region or outside is the intrinsic growth rate. So we can have like a geometric visualization of what's going on. If we do some maths, actually, we can resolve this system. And if we put the vector R as a combination of the matrix and the vector of equilibrium abundances, then you can actually see that this vector R can be decomposed as a sum of the column vectors of the matrix that are multiplied by these equilibrium numbers that we want them to be positive, non-zero and non-negative, just positive. So of course, so here it is. So we are interested in this region in which we can decompose our vector R as a linear combination on these vectors only with positive values. So that's called in math in complex whole. And the cool thing is that if the interactions vary, the shape and the size of this region can vary. In fact, if the interactions are not only competitive, but also with facilitation, you can go outside this first quadrant. And then if the R varies, then it can go from inside to outside these regions of coexistence. So when you have time variation, since at each time step you have one matrix of interactions and one R, your community is going to move through this space. And we can ask, think, okay, if so here, if we freeze in this time our system and let it go, how will be the final community? Will it be feasible in the sense that it will be coexistent of all my species or not? So these are the kind of questions that we can ask with this framework. And bear in mind that I have shown you two species. With three species, you can also visualize it, but with more species, it's absolutely impossible. But nevertheless, there are geometric tools to measure the size and the shape of this feasibility domain, because we have 7 species and 4 species, so no pretty spheres to draw. Sorry. So first, we measured for each rainfall condition the size of this region, and the bigger the better, because that means that the community can move more without any species going extinct. And we found a pretty interesting thing. That is that with more drought, that is with a harsher environment, actually the coexistence opportunities, this size was bigger than when we had fewer anomalies. And actually, since we have a model, we can explain this thing. And actually, it came also the stress variant hypothesis here into play, because with more facilitation, we have seen that more facilitation is when there is drought. Also, in the feasibility domain, what it does is to increase its size, so you will have more coexistence opportunities. And the other way around, when you increase competition, you have less. So basically, this interaction rearrangement through time explains this increase in coexistence opportunities. Okay, and then if that's only the study of the interactions, if we also add the information about the variation of the intrinsic growth rate, we can measure what we would call like the structural stability, that is the distance of this vector of intrinsic growth rate to the border. So to the borders in which one species is going to become extinct. And we do not see any signal, it was flat. For us, we came up with this philosophical interpretation that it has, although there may be here, for example, more coexistent opportunities, then the species need to adapt their intrinsic growth rate to be able to profit them, and it's not happening. So at the end of the day, even though the interactions may change to facilitate more, the R's need to keep going, and if not, there will be extinctions. So this last part has been a little bit complex in terms of concept, but at least it's common for 2 different taxa, which was something a little bit unexpected. We at the beginning thought that we were going to have 2 different stories for each of the datasets, but that's not the case. And the virtue of going through the pain of going to the field, having a long-term data set and fitting the model is that then you can simulate different outcomes of environmental variability. And then we can have results on how these rearrangements of parameters affect the final coexistence of the community. And basically, that's been all. Actually, I've been super fast. Okay, so you might have a lot of questions because I guess some things are not clear. But just some seconds to thank my collaborators in this work. Basically, Oscar Godoy and Nacho Bartomeus, this project, this it was part of a bigger project of Oscar, who wants to add this temporal variability in coexistence theory, and then I also tutored all these wonderful students and postdoc in a thing called, it's like a hackathon called Complexity 72 Hours. So it's pretty funny, and they are now looking for projects for this year in London. So I really recommend you to go there. I go there with these data sets, and the guys were able to replicate some of our results and even go a little bit farther. So it's pretty funny. Yeah. And that's all. I'm happy to answer and discuss anything you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Violeta, for the great talk. So now it's time for questions. And if you are one of those exalted, specially chosen one who show up on my participant list, I just have to mention our speaker today is not on that list. Then you would be able to raise your hand, but because of some glitch, I can't see it. So my apologies. Just say it if you want to, if you want to ask a question, and we'll take it that way. And I'll try to update for next time. Chris, I can see you raising. Apparently, you are one of those chosen ones who show up on my list. Aren't you lucky? Go ahead.
And you need to unmute.
Classic. Right. I wondered if you could unpack a bit more what you mean by adapt the intrinsic growth rates in order to be able to coexist. Are you suggesting that species in some way reduce their growth rates in order to be able to fit in with the community? Or what's the kind of insight behind that part?
No, okay, but that was an abuse of language. But what I mean, if I, oh, okay, here. So basically, what I mean is that in order to have one feasible solution to coexist, full coexistence, you need two things. One, a feasibility domain big enough, and then that your R's are inside. Pretty obvious. And the thing is that what we are seeing is that the feasibility may be very big during drought, but the R's are in a position in which sometimes are even outside the feasibility domain. So that would mean that if we let the system run in that precise set of conditions without them varying, so yes, the classical case, then some species would go extinct, or even all of them. So the thing is that there is a rearrangement of interactions and R's, and the R's are just not going inside the feasibility domain for some cases. So that's like the description. And the interpretation is that, okay, so it's like a pity that we actually can have a big feasibility domain, but these are for the reason that whatever it is, maybe, well, I guess it's first because maybe our model is not powerful enough to capture how this rearrangement actually is happening, and then the other limitation is physiological in the sense that maybe there are constraints on the species that do not allow them to go below certain levels of R's that are the ones needed to go inside the feasibility domain.
Is there much overlap between the feasibility domains between the different environments? Would you get a sense that the R's are having to jump all over the sort of surface of the space? Or is it that they kind of stack and it's just shrinking and expanding? Or
It's the second situation. This is a job that I did not do, but Oscar Godoy's PhD student, Sergio Picó, and they studied the overlap between each feasibility domain, and they do found that they are in a region, confined in a region, and of course they are going to be different, but they are almost in. I mean, they are moving in a defined region. And they measured the overlap among them because it's definitely non-zero. Yeah, it's not like jumping. No, not at all.
Thanks. I'll pass over to Chris.
All right. Thanks, Violeta. That was a great talk.
Hi.
So if I understood correctly, you were kind of looking at coexistence at every every year, I guess, every point in time for every drought level. Um, what I was wondering is there's this tradition in theoretical ecology, the idea that environmental variability itself can help maintain coexistence, going back to Hutchinson, Richard Levins, Peter Chesson. So I wonder, is that something you've looked at with your framework, or maybe because it's lack of Volterra that it all like averages out?
No, actually, this thing, no, this, oh yes, there. I mean, this is more or less our attempt to see that in the sense that in the last case in which we simulate one situation with drought and another with high rainfall, and those situations were oscillating through time. Actually, what was happening is that you had one situation in which if you freeze the community and let it evolve, it would become non-feasible. But the fact that each time step is switching the art and the interactions due to this new rainfall value is rescuing these species that otherwise will go extinct.
Where are you heading off somewhere?
What?
All right. I think that's not
Paris.
relevant to us.
It will take
Um,
you
so,
27 hours.
Oh, right. You heading on the train all the way?
No, that's super cool. I guess I'd like to dig in more. Is this like, do you have a preprint? Is this published?
It's not published yet. We are going to send it shortly. And I guess that I will put it on archive or bioarchive, and I will let you know through social networks and things.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll keep my eyes peeled. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
As a quick addition on that, I was looking at the preprint. Hi, Violeta.
Hi.
I was looking at the preprint, and I would like to see those AIJ and BIJ, what they look like. Do you have them in your slides somewhere?
Not here.
Okay,
Well,
no
I
worries.
have. Yeah, I have
Maybe.
this. I
Okay,
have.
so
This is the realized. So the
okay, this is the
sum.
realized.
Yeah. But in the preprint, in the supplementary, I have all the values plus the histograms of them.
Okay.
So
Okay, excellent.
yeah, these are the values. I mean, that was supposed to be just to a funny, a beautiful picture, not to look at them. But yeah, they are like between 0 and 1, more or less. And when you multiply the B matrix times the rainfall that you have, then you obtain a matrix that is of the same order of magnitude of the A baseline.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense given what you were showing for the dominance. Anyway, that's cool. I will try to figure out how to find supplementary materials of the
Oh,
archive.
I mean, I have just. Oh, no, sorry. That archive that is there is the report of this complexity 72-hour
Ah,
project.
sorry. Okay, my
Yes,
bad.
yes.
That's me.
So, oh, no, sorry. Now I realized. So, all these figures are going to be in the next weeks. So, yeah, definitely I will let you know.
Cool.
And they will be uploaded in, I don't know, bioarchive, I guess. So, yeah, but it's not yet. It's not yet.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Matthew. And are there any other questions? Actually, there's one in the chat. So Joe Brennan is asking, in the cases where solutions were just outside the feasibility domain, did they tend to be situations where species go extinct, or are there a set of species with unbounded dynamics due to facilitation? Oh, good question.
Oh, yeah, both.
Okay.
Both. When we, for example, in this graph, where you have Shannon index can be 0 because all species have gone extinct, or because one species has blow up. And we got the two results.
So both results.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yes. And Joe is thanking you.
In that spirit, I had a quick other question, which is, do you have easy ways to check if, when you're outside of the feasibility domain, is it basically that one species is doing something weird, or that's really a significant fraction of species are going to do something weird? I would be interested in that also.
You mean whether it's just one, the one that go up, or what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, I meant like say if you think about species going extinct, maybe you have crossed outside of the feasibility domain because it always has one direction which is very, very narrow because one species is basically dead and we should not care about that species, right? So I was wondering whether there are easy ways or good ways to actually distinguish between a situation where one species is going to die versus everybody is going to die when you're outside of the feasibility domain.
Well, when you are outside the feasibility domain, actually you are inside another cones. But in those cones, just one species is going to have a non-zero abundance, let's say. So if you just invert the matrix and resolve the system, you can see how many species are extinct or not. But I have not looked at the simulations to see
All right,
whether there is a correspondence. But
okay, good job.
yeah, I guess there will be.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? While people are thinking, I wanted to ask something which tangentially might touch what Chris was asking about as well. So one thing with the feasibility approach is that it assumes equilibria. But here you don't really have an equilibrium. You have a dynamic system and you're evaluating the feasibility out of equilibrium as if it was some sort of equilibrium state. Is that actually telling you something interesting? Or is the way to think about this is to average out the dynamics because there are no non-linearities or covariances in this growth rate. So if we just put well, actually there are, right? Sorry, my bad. I take that back. There totally are because the coefficients and the abundances jointly fluctuate. So it's actually not easy to. So anyway, just the first half of the question. So how should one think about this of applying the equilibrium framework to the fluctuating one?
Yeah, that's super good questions, and it's something that we are working on it in the follow-up project. The way in which I see it is that it's a proxy of the future of your community, provided that it's fixed in time. So we are really used to just calculate the structural stability or even the community matrix and its eigenvalues for just one set of parameters. So here it's true that I have several of them. So for us, the first step was saying, okay, let's now first treat them as if they were a set of fixed communities and see the quality of each of the communities. Of course, at the end of the day, these equilibriums that are predicted are never going to happen because at the next time step, we are going to have different R's and different A's. So of course, it's going to change. But that was like our first step to treat a dynamic that is clearly known and not at equilibrium as a little set of equilibrium communities to see how they would evolve, provided that suddenly they are fixed.
Thank you. No, that makes sense. I might add in one piece of perspective then, which may or
Yeah,
may not be
sure.
interesting to you, and it again connects to what Chris was saying, which is because I think this model that you have can have fluctuation dependent coexistence or co-extinction mechanisms, depending on which direction it works, right? Because the your effective interaction coefficients and your n's are both time varying. So when you do the time average over them, you have some covariance term between the two. And I guess the one thing just to be cognizant of is that the approach you explain, I assume, kills those covariance terms, which I don't know how tragic that is, whether that influences anything at all. But I'm wondering if you have an intuition for that. So do you actually see the covariance structure maintain some coexistence or species persistence? Let's put it this way.
I don't know, and right now, out of the blue, it would be difficult for me to come up with a quick answer
Mm.
to that, but definitely it's cool.
I'm just wondering, I don't know if this is interesting to you, it's your project. I'm just thinking out loud that would it be possible to kill the covariance structure with some clever thing? I don't know.
What do you mean by
Subtract.
the covariance structure? Sorry, like what are you trying to say
Oh,
about that
sorry.
in
What
relation
I'm
to?
in the fluctuating environment framework, we write the model as R plus sum over J A times N, and that is what we have on the screen right now on the top. It's just forget about the A and the B. Just think of A as varying in time, so being a function of time, getting an extra index T, right? No
Yeah,
problem.
right, right. Yeah, AIJ plus
And
BIJ
now
digits
imagine
down.
that
That's
we
it.
average over time. Exactly. And then we have
Okay.
Aij t times n at t average, which is not simply Aij t average times n at t average, but the product of averages plus the covariance between them.
Hmm.
That's what I mean. So
Yeah,
the
I don't know
temporal
if that
covariance.
works in general for the I mean even for linear systems that are linear time varying, there's something about that, and GLV has a connection to that because of the like the diagonal stability condition has like a history with the sorry, and I'm saying this because I came from control theory, but Kumpati Narendra, my advisor's advisor, did some stuff on like M matrices and things.
Mhm.
Because of these, because they get multiplied by n and there's a log there, I don't know if you can do that like you can for linear time varying things in this specific case. So I don't know if that works.
Mm.
Part of it might if the signs or something stayed similar or something, but yeah, I don't know if you can do that type of thing. Um, yeah, because of the power series like structure of the things being influenced by the abundances. Yeah,
Just a
I
quick.
would think it'd be interesting. Actually, your comment, you don't want to influence their research, but it would be kind of cool to actually show that maybe that was destroyed. So if you could actually show that these ideas of equilibrium, that you could actually show there's like an attractor, and sh actually show where these ideas of these averaging would actually break down and you get the wrong result. That actually might be like a nice negative result, actually. Uh,
Sorry, Mathieu, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Just a quick random thought in that direction is the funny thing about the feasibility approach compared to the usual thing, which would be I want the mean of what's on the screen to be non-negative, is that we are asking kind of the reverse, which is I know that the boundaries will be given by when some n is zero here. So maybe, that will give me the boundaries on what the R can be. So maybe the minimum here or something like the boundary can be something that we somehow hash out, even though the average would be something more complicated. I don't know if that makes sense, if you see what I mean, but in the sense that in the feasibility thing, the idea is that we vary all the possible trajectories of n, and then that tells us what are the possible r's. That's the edge
Oh,
of the domain of r's that would give us some an n touching zero, right? So there's maybe there's a kind of weird way to somehow move this thing around, right? I think
mhm.
Violeta, you have the slides a bit later about this feasibility, how you create this feasibility cone? Sorry, I'm probably being quite confusing, but
oh no, it's more here.
right. So basically, it's this idea that you look at all the possible R's that are this linear combination of the N's and the A's, and then you look at the boundaries, which is when some of the N stars touches 0.
Mhm.
And so maybe that you can do with time, like trajectories of R's and trajectories of N's somehow, right? I don't know what it would look like. I cannot even imagine, but maybe there's a way to do it, right?
I think that kind of addresses the other questions that were raised too. I think there's a same vein there of what you probably be able to show because your experimental data shows it is like if the values stay fixed, it would collapse, right? So you actually could show how you can expand the I don't know, the stability of the system and interactions can be larger precisely because they change. And then whether or not the average ends up being an approximate solution or how fast the thetas change. But I think all three questions uh, kind of fit in that same regime of like, what does the classical analysis tell you? And then, I don't know, that's quite interesting.
By the way, Violeta, just I have no idea again whether this is useful, but random idea is that one thing one can do is in terms of the measuring the effect of fluctuation is to actually measure the covariance and see if it's big or not big. Or you can just download Steve Elner's scripts. I don't know if he's in the audience because I can't see the participant list, but they worked out computational methods to actually gauge whether a given model is generating coexistence via fluctuating mechanisms. So one could just feed it into their scripts, and so what they do is they decorrelate the fluctuations by shuffling the time series randomly and seeing if then
Okay.
that would maintain things in the same way or not. And they automated it, the script. So I would assume that Lotka-Volterra is one of those simple use cases that maybe they can handle out of the box. I don't know if this is useful. Just saying that it's definitely out there. It's Elner et al. 2019. I want to say Ecology Letters.
The journal Ecology Letters.
Ecology Letters, Elner et al. 2019, I think.
Okay, thank you.
I think.
Thank you for the discussion.
No, absolutely. And if it's useful, great. If not, my apologies.
Oh, no, Jesus, but this covariant theme is very interesting. We didn't thought about that.
I'm conscious we've gone slightly down a rabbit hole here, but I wonder if a first approximation, almost you've done this already a little bit, I think, because your comparison between your black line and the green line of your simulations is comparing a constant environment against a fluctuating environment. And I think the Elno approach would almost be just to slightly tease apart what is it about the fluctuations that is causing that. Or maybe I misinterpreted that graph completely. But in here, your kind of response to a constant environment and fluctuating, is that the difference between black and green here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the dotted is the empirical one.
Okay. So to me, when I saw that, I saw they're actually quite similar. So maybe the impact of the fluctuations is maybe not completely enormous. But if the Elno approach of kind of breaking up that fluctuations into fluctuations in the environment, fluctuations in the species can maybe unpick. There might be something interesting going on that's actually cancelling out or something in that part. I could be completely off there. What I really wanted to sort of see on that though is like, is it a problem that in the pollinator data set that the kind of baseline simulations appear to cause extinction really rapidly? Is that what's represented by those lines hitting the Shannon of 0?
Yeah, is that the first time step they die out. If that's a problem, well, of course, in terms of interpretability, it is because I was expecting the green simulation to be non-zero because it's the most similar, let's say, to the empirical data, but it didn't. Yeah, this is a thing that I cannot explain, basically.
Do you think it's
Sorry,
a
one thing about
parameter
this,
thing?
the simulations though, because I simulate a lot of like large scale microbial things. You inferred them from these like quite sparse time points, but when you forward simulated them, um, you might want to use a shorter time step actually, just for the forward simulation, because if you're already saturated in the green case there, um, those might be artifacts of the time step you use to forward simulate. So, once again, you're stuck by the data you have and whether or not you want to use intermediate time points. But for forward simulating, sometimes we see slight differences by choosing a much finer time step for the forecast.
Oh, sorry, but if I do that, I think that my empirical ecologist friends that have collected the data will just suck at me because the time step of a year for them is very important and it's a
Hmm.
generation time turnover.
Hmm.
So what would it mean to have
Yeah,
one
good point.
intermediate
Yeah, yeah,
time?
yeah. Yeah, you have that extra issue. I can just tell you from experience simulating like hundreds of microbial communities, we can measure the microbiome like once a day in fecal samples, sometimes twice a day. If you're doing it in vivo, ex vivos, you can do it even more. Like Chris has data from Ophilia's group using ODs. But I know, I can 100% tell you that I can measure a system, it can be stable. Uh, and if I forecast with the time points I collected as that being the timestamp using this log trick, right? Because you did analytical integration on the left and the right-hand side is some Euler approximation. I mean, that's what that equation is, right? For the GLV dynamics. If I don't shrink the time point and add a smaller delta t to the right-hand side, I will get things dying and I'll actually get like fundamentally different trajectories. So yeah, you might be stuck in a hard point there, but I can just tell you that from experience, forward simulating these with the smaller time step just makes your life a lot easier. But I get your point. What is theta t, right? If you start doing that.
Yeah. Oh, good to know. Thank you.
Is that, if I may ask, is that due to the Ricker model-ness that we know that the Ricker model starts becoming
I mean, it
chaotic
is,
and weird?
yeah, I mean, the fundamental issue is that the left-hand side is analytical. It doesn't really matter. I mean, but it explicitly, or I guess here there's no delta t, but the right-hand side is just an Euler approximation, right? And so the point is that the right-hand side gets worse and worse for larger time points. It just does. Yeah, because actually how you get to the equation, right, is you have, x dot equals x times r plus a times x. You divide by x dot divided by x. If you integrate that, you get the log difference, right? X dot over x is a log. So the left-hand side is completely clean. That's why you do this type of approximation. It's about like numerical stability, really. Then the right-hand side starts to look like a linear system. But the point is there's a hidden delta t on the right-hand side because that's an Euler approximation explicitly, even if you don't have the delta t there. And so that, there will be some parts of there that get worse and worse and worse. And so just typically when we're doing forecasting, like when we do knockout bacteria or something like that, we would always pick just a smaller step size to the right, but we don't have this other issue like you have, which I totally get, right? Like what is theta t now? But yeah, we have to do that, especially with bacteria that are growing, changing by orders of magnitude and things like that. But I'll be quiet now. Sorry, cannibalizing.
Any other questions though or comments? Not, and thank you again for coming, everyone, and thank you, Violeta, for the great talk. We want to see you next time. We're going to be back in 2 weeks, I believe, with another talk. So please stay tuned and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.